Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé bears all on Discovery Plus. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, don't use YouTube as a replacement for therapy. If you need a therapist, get one. You really deserve it. Let's watch.
Expect perfection, but communication is the issue for us.
Yeah, we have bad communication.
What do you mean by that?
He's never home. Like he's never home, and he doesn't text. I wish that we had communication that was a little bit more like just text, like, hey, baby, I'm working. I love you. Or
All right, interesting. So this interview was a while ago, before they got married. Well, actually, they haven't got married in our timeline either. Anyway, but this is a while ago. And Ariela is saying that Biniyam is never home and doesn't reply to texts, and that bothers her, and they're having conflict around that. We saw a little bit of that in the regular season. This is bears all, right? So, and I hypothesized that we could be seeing a pursuer distancer, maybe a preoccupied avoidant, at the very least a preoccupied side from hers. Or, you could argue that she's not preoccupied. One of the signs of being preoccupied attachment is, in the contemporary world, is where you're texting a lot and you're frequently upset and hurt that someone isn't texting you back. Now, that could mean preoccupied attachment, meaning that you were raised in such a way that I have dog hair all over my face. Both of their heads were right next to each other, and it just was too cute. I wanted to join them in the trifecta of heads. Anyway, so with preoccupied attachment, it's such that when you're being raised, you were inconsistently attuned to and had to kind of game the system, and you are hypervigilant about retaining attachment figures and are preoccupied and worried at all times that you're going to lose other people. And so it's sort of like if you're on a tightrope, you don't want to think about doing the laundry or taxes or what you're going to do tomorrow. You got to focus on balancing on that tightrope, right? Because if you take your mind off the tightrope, you're going to fall off and die. That's the way preoccupied people feel about their attachments. If they take their eyes off of their close, attachment figures, they are terrified that they're just going to get abandoned, and they literally have a feeling like they're going to die. It's not a rational feeling, but they have that. So for those individuals, one, they're going to text a lot because they're going to want contact, because they're hyper vigilant about, am I losing that person? And they're very focused on the relationship and clingy in that way. Not only are they going to text a lot, but when the person doesn't text back, then immediately, then my dogs are barking right now, then the preoccupied person is going to be very worried and overly interpretive of the fact that the person isn't texting back. That means they don't love me. I gotta text them again, and then I'm gonna feel hurt, and then I'm gonna get angry, and I'm gonna yell at them when they get home. So that's preoccupied. Another possibility is that Ariela doesn't suffer from preoccupied attachment and is secure attached, but he is just so avoidant or likes a relationship style that is so distant that she just is being triggered. If you have a spouse that you're connecting with and they're never home and they just never call you and never text you back, regardless of your attachment style, it would be rational to be hurt by that and to request more contact. So I don't know which one it is. I mean, I don't see huge indications of Ariela and preoccupied attachment. This is a red flag for that. I don't see huge, we just don't know much about that. Now, I will say that their relationship, they tend to do pretty well together. So at the very least, we would hypothesize that their insecure attachment isn't very extreme. But maybe we'll get some more data here.
something, but Biniyam is not like that. He doesn't answer texts. He doesn't get back to me. That's very hard.
How often is Biniyam out, and who is he out with?
He's out most of the time, and he's always with the same group of people, usually, again and again.
All right, so it lends itself to worries of infidelity. I don't think Ariela has that, or at least not when she's calm. So what is he doing? Is it that he's working? We know that he works in clubs, dances, DJ, this kind of thing. Is he out with his friends? Does he live in a culture that doesn't really value being home very much as a husband or as a father? Is he just really busy? Maybe he'll explain.
The issue that I have, if he's working, I'm happy if he was working.
Biniyam, I'd like to know, who are you hanging out with all this time that Ari is talking about?
Me, I'm hanging out like most of time, just like friends. We work like most of time like in the composing like music. Like me, I'm do like choreography. We do like video record.
Okay, so he's saying we're doing video recording, we're doing music, we're writing, we're and or it sounds like he's saying just hanging out with his friends. So okay, but at least in my culture in Seattle, when you have a young child, because their child is still young, right? I mean, I'm trying to figure out where this is in the. Yeah, they definitely have a child because they're engaged. That was after that holy water thing. That in my culture, it would really be unfair to leave your spouse home alone with the child all the time and not participate in the child rearing. But that's my culture. Other people have different cultures where they might say, one, my responsibilities lie elsewhere. Two, I have the privilege of being a man that I don't have to deal with stuff that I don't want to have to deal with. That stuff you have to deal with. Or it's expected that you're going to reach out to other women in the family and extended family and you're going to get assistance from them. I don't know. But I will say my initial reaction to this, and it's interesting on the Bears All show, they go into details that we don't get on the regular show, which seems like, wouldn't this detail be something that would be interesting to go into on the regular show? But anyway, that my first reaction to this is like, come on, Biniyam. You have a wife who is in a foreign country and doesn't have a support system with a young child at home. Go home. Why are you recording? Now, on the other hand, maybe his music career is a very important thing to their money-making situation, and that's his job. But I don't know, like what I know about music, I'm a musician. I've had a musical career. I once thought I might be the next Billy Corgan, and that lasted for about 7 days, or I don't know, very short amount of time before the world showed me, no, you're not. And this is when I was 19 years old. So I understand the drive to want to create and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, when you have a wife and a young child at home, like, go home. Like, wait till your child's a little older, maybe spend a little bit more time away from home at that point. But that's my first reaction. But that's my culture. Other cultures around the world are going to see things differently regarding that. Does that make it okay? Not necessarily, but it doesn't make it harder for me to evaluate. If this couple was in Seattle and he was raised in Seattle, I'd be like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? Go home. But I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments.
Just relax, just like.
No, baby, that's not true. Because I remember one of the last times I went to the studio, one of your friends came up to me to complain about one of your other friends. And he said, every time he does this, he gets drunk, he can't finish anything, and then we never get anything done. That pretty much sums it up.
Maybe that guy, he's the poison in your brain.
The other possibility factor is that they fight frequently, and his way of managing the fighting is to avoid and run. And his method of excusing the avoidance and running is to, quote unquote, record and work on his music when he's just drinking and hanging out with his buddies for the most part. Which we could imagine that he might have a hard time, I don't know, dealing with conflict. He doesn't seem like the sort of person that is like, okay, hey, let's talk about this. How are you feeling, Ariela? Okay, let me tell you how I'm feeling. Like, we can't really see him doing that. Maybe he does, but it's hard to imagine that. And that lends itself to an hypothesis of terror and fear when it comes to vulnerability and having to have those conversations, because he associates them with failure and rejection and horribleness and anger. And so he just avoids the whole thing. I don't know, because if that's true or not, but there's some yellow flags of that.
Felt especially after your mother left Ethiopia. How are those feelings of loneliness today?
I like to be alone a lot. Like, that's actually my personality. But I like to know that I have people in my life that I can reach out to or communicate with. And I don't have family in Ethiopia, so that is alienating.
Interesting. So we're learning from her that she says, I like to be alone a lot. So what does that tell us about her personality? Well, not a lot in terms of preoccupied attachment, avoidant attachment style, extroversion, introversion, who knows. But that's interesting. I wouldn't have predicted that. But it does explain why she would be so ready to move to another country where she doesn't know anyone and separate herself from all of her support system. It's maybe throughout her life she's said to herself, I kind of like distance and getting away from people. And it's an interesting detail.
He don't speak good English. They don't understand each other.
Ariela ስህተት ትሰራለች።
Ari, she don't respect sometimes the culture. She just upset when we just got her. I don't know.
You get together and you're together 12 hours, 24 hours,
The thing is, sometimes you don't.
Interesting. Okay, so if I understand right, the sisters are saying that Ari doesn't respect their culture and will get upset at how long the family gatherings are. And Ari's like, sometimes you get together for 12 hours, 24 hours. I will say, in my Japanese American family, that's kind of us. Like, and I didn't know this was unusual, but in my family, when we get together, it's for long stretches of time. There's a Japanese grocery store here in Seattle. It's been here for decades. My Japanese family actually knows, or at least used to know the owners, called Wajimaya. There are other outlets, other places, Wajimaya. Anyway, Japanese grocery store. They got all the stuff, and the bakery, and the restaurants, and the fish, and the crabs, and the smells, and the kimchi, and they got the whole thing. And I know kimchi is Korean, but it's often sold in Japanese places. Anyway, point is, when family comes in from out of town, we usually go to Wajimaya, and we will just park in a grocery. This is a grocery store. Now, it has a food court, so it has that benefit, and a bookstore. So it's not like a regular, but it is a grocery store. And me and my family will hang out there for like 6 hours, and we'll sit and we'll get snacks and we'll talk, and someone will be like, hey, let's go get some musubi, and and then my dad's always bringing snacks and stuff. And to me, that's totally normal. I've had, like my wife, who her family isn't like that. And over time, I've realized, I think so. Anyway, I can relate to Ari and Biniyam's conflict here, or difference, that for Ari, she's like, look, when I go to hang out with family, it's for a couple hours, right? Like Thanksgiving is this way too. I didn't know that for some families, Thanksgiving is like, it's like this short thing where you show up, you eat, and then you go home. Thanksgiving has never been that way in my family. It is all day long and I have come from a family of night owls, and so everyone's up till midnight, and some of the best conversations in my family are past midnight. Anyway, so I realize we're the weird people. It sounds like, which is fine, it's just a difference. Personally, I prefer it. Especially when people are out of town. You don't get to see them very often. You might not see them for another year. You gotta, have as much time you can with them. Anyway, so Ari and Biniyam are having that difference, which is fine. It's just a difference. I will say I understand the Aris and the wishes, and I understand the Biniyam and. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.